Greetings everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is your Hello Queen speaking, and we're going to go ahead and talk about Season 1, Episode 4 of Amazon Prime's Wheel of Time. I'm not sure if I made this clear in the last video, but in this video I'm going to speak of it as if everybody who's listening has watched Episode 4. So if you haven't, put this on your watch later and come back after you've watched it. Because I'm going to be openly talking spoilers if you haven't watched it. I am a book reader. I am cognizant of the fact that not everybody who watches this is going to be a book reader, so I'm avoiding spoilers where I can for things that are going to come up, even though I know about them. But we're going to be talking about episode 4 as if you've seen it, while I do some diamond painting. I've got a section here to work on, so come on back and we'll talk about it. Okay, so the last episode I actually recorded the day that the episode 4 came out, which is this past Friday. I haven't worked on this painting since, so I did finish that section that we were working over here while I was working on that. But I put my paintings away on Friday because we use this space to play D&D on Friday nights, which we did. And so I had put the painting away. Yeah, let's get it at 8:14. This painting's used a lot of 8:14. I think I'm through the first 2 bags of it already. It's very blocky. All of this is this 8:14 color. All of this background. But we're not here to talk about diamond painting. That's what I'm doing, is diamond painting. If you're interested in the canvas, it is Little Helpers. It is in my WIP list, which is linked in the description. I need a pen. Where's my pen? It's right here. Too much crap around here. Okay, so episode 4. Okay, so when we open episode 4, we are in Gyealdan, which is in turmoil because there's a war between the Dragon Reborn's army and the army of Gyealdan. And we meet the king of Gyealdan, apparently, as he talks with Logain, who they're clearly losing the war to. And I like how they're depicting Saidin. When the women channel, it just looks like white streamers. But when he channels, because Saidin has been tainted by the Dark One, as we talked about in my first episode, which I'm going to put this into a playlist eventually, but first episode's called The Primer on the Wheel of Time. I'm going to link it up in the eye. It will also be in the description. We talked about how the male half of the source is tainted, and every man who tries to channel thus goes mad due to the taint. So when you see him channel, unlike when you see the women channel, there's these black flecks in the streams that aren't there when the women channel. I thought that was interesting. Now, I don't think those are meant to be visible to everyone. They would be visible to him. But in the books, only channelers can see other channelers, and men can't see women channeling and vice versa. They actually do mention that later on when Alana and Moraine are talking about how they knew that they couldn't see men channeling, but they never thought it was going to be quite like that. When they have him shield, they can feel him channeling because he's pushing on the shield. But they can't see it. So I don't think that laymen are meant to be seeing the streamers. They're obviously meant to see visible effects, like when Moraine throws a fireball, they can see the fireball, but they can't see the streamers of the power. That's for us in the audience to see. But I like how they visualized what Loghain is hearing and seeing, even though the other guy can't see it. He can tell that Loghain is listening to something, which is why he goes, "Hey, you're mad already," but he can't see what we're seeing. That's purely for us. The fact that Loghain is very charismatic, the fact that Loghain is merciful. Many people go their whole lives without ever seeing channeling done in the flesh in this world. So the idea that a man that could channel may be mad, but he's healed you, I could see being very persuasive. So eventually, apparently, this king ends up joining Loghain. He falls in line. And that's the danger when someone calls themselves the Dragon Reborn, is that people do flock to them. Okay. The next thing you see after that scene is the camp. I think the camp has 8 sisters in it other than Moraine. We definitely saw a shot of 4 red sisters, and I counted 4 green sisters. I meant to count in that last scene that we saw, where all of them are together, to see exactly how many. But even Karine says that no army is going to get past 7 full sisters when she and Leandrin are shielding Loghain. So that, to me, says that this group was 8 sisters. Moraine makes 9. The 2 of them are shielding Loghain, so that leaves 7 out against the army. And it looks like it's 4 red and 4 green, which isn't that strange a combination. It is normally red sisters who gentle, but as who deal with the men who can channel. But green is the battle Aja. So if there's an army necessarily that would need fighting, they would send green sisters. As Alana says, the greens are meant to be the battle Aja. They're meant to be the ones who will lead the armies with the Aes Sedai to the last battle, which was supposed to be the battle that the Dragon Reborn is supposed to fight against the Dark One. But she never thought that she would see it. She also talks about how only one warder wouldn't be enough. Most Aes Sedai only bond one warder at a time. If that warder dies, they may bond another afterwards, but they don't bond more than one warder at a time. Reds and greens are the exception. Reds don't bond warders at all. And greens can bond many warders. I don't think I ever heard of a green bonding more than 4 at a time. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I don't think I've heard of more than 4. Also, I said that Lan and Moraine are not romantically or physically involved with each other. They aren't. That doesn't mean that that's the way it is with all Aes Sedai. We definitely get the impression that Alana and her warders have a lot of fun together. That's not uncommon. There is also rumors in the books about some greens actually getting married to their warders. Most Aes Sedai do not marry. But yes, Lan and Moraine are not intimate, but that doesn't mean that other Aes Sedai warder pairings aren't. And it doesn't mean that all green Aes Sedai warder pairings are. These are people their relationships are going to be different. Warders are exclusively male. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Just as Aes Sedai are exclusively female. That doesn't mean, no, that's getting off topic. We're not going to talk about that. I felt a little bit bad meeting Karine, considering she's clearly a senior Aes Sedai. She seems to be leading this group. She's calling Leandrin on her crap. She's also very powerful. But she's not a character name that I actually recognized. And that immediately made, hey, I think this character is going to get killed. Because I don't know her. She seems to be new created for this particular series, so I don't think she's going to live. Whoops. I do like the relationship she has with her warder. I do like her warder. Her warder is a lot of fun. I feel bad. There's one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about Warder and their Aes Sedai. Warder and their Aes Sedai, they're bonded through the power. They share each other's pain. They share each other's emotions, which makes them very, very close. It also explains why when Lan and Moraine are talking after he's been around the bonfire, he's like, yeah, I shouldn't have had a drink. You always get emotional when I drink. Yes, if one side or the other has something to drink, the other will feel it. And also get intoxicated. It's fun. But unfortunately, in this, we also see what happens when an Aes Sedai dies. The warder does not take it well. And many warders, like men who can channel who get gentle, many warders don't live much past the death of their Aes Sedai. Now, Aes Sedai, due to their ability to channel, are very long-lived. It is far more likely that a warder will die, that an Aes Sedai will have a succession of warders, because of the fact that Aes Sedai are very long-lived, and the warders are the bodyguards, so they're more likely to get killed. But warders who lose their Aes Sedai are generally not in a good place. And we see that with her warder, who unfortunately I did not catch the name of and don't have in my notes. Now this scene with them, with Logain and this camp and that sort of thing, this is not from the books. This did not happen in the books. Excuse me. Logain, the White Tower did send a bunch of sisters to go get Logain because he had proclaimed himself the Dragon Reborn and bring him back to the tower. But in the books they did that. They stopped him. And it's possible that, because I think Logain did end up killing a sister or two, so it's possible that this Karine that we meet in this episode was one of the ones that Logain's armies killed when they were trying to catch him. I don't recall. A one-off mention's not going to stick in my brain. But we never run into this procession in the books. We see it from afar at one point, but they successfully catch Logain and they put him in a cage and they carry him to the White Tower, where he is put on trial and then gentled at the White Tower. That's the way it happens in the books. And instead they've added in this thing where we get to where this all happens, and that's interesting, but this is not something that happened in the books at all. So I was kind of curious how this was all going to play out, because this is new. The only other sister, so we've seen Alana becomes an important character as we go on. So does Leandrin. I don't recall if any of the other sisters were named. I didn't recognize any of them from the descriptions in the book, which Robert Jordan was really great with descriptions, so there's that. Okay. The band between her and Alana in here brings up something interesting, and this is sort of the crux of what Moraine's been doing. Is there's a problem with the idea that thinking they're going to need the Dragon Reborn at the last battle to save them. But if the Dragon Reborn's born as a man in this version, and they gentle him, then what? And that's kind of what Moraine's trying to do, is she's trying to find the Dragon Reborn so that she can guide him, or her, and keep him safe until the last battle. Like we've talked about what the red Aja are, we've talked about what the green Aja are. The blue Aja, the only thing that we really hear about is Leandrin calling them spies. The blue Aja take up causes. In this case, Moraine has taken up the cause to try and find their Dragon Reborn. But they generally, because they tend to work alone or in small groups, do end up having to be relatively subtle about what they're doing. Okay, I think that's all I needed to talk about the Aes Sedai there. We check back in with Perrin and Egwene, and they're with the Tuatha on. I think they've basically made it so that the kids don't know who the Tuatha on are, so that we can be introduced to the Tuatha on, because the Edmunds Fielders absolutely would know about the traveling people. They're alternately called the Tuatha on, they're called the traveling people, they're called the Tinkers. They are effectively Romani. They're Romani coded. They follow the way of the leaf, which they do explain very well in the episode. It is a complete pacifist ideation. They don't fight, and they don't fight back. If somebody tries to kill them, they try and run away. They're not trying to die, but they don't fight back. And throughout the books, Perrin always very much wanted to like this ideation. What symbol is that? It's kind of a tree. 498. He has this affinity to them, and I'm really, really hoping they didn't just give him a wife for him to accidentally kill off to make that feel, his affinity with the Tuatha on feel more genuine. I really hope that's not the only reason they did that. Because in the books, he carries that axe. They had a much larger period of time in which to gather up their stuff and decide to go with Moraine. So he carries the axe because they're going out into the big, bad, scary world, and it's a weapon. He's clearly not carrying it here because he probably doesn't want to ever see it again after he accidentally killed his wife with it. So, I mean, I get why he's not carrying it now. But I'm really hoping that's not the only reason they gave him a wife to accidentally kill off, was to make him and his affinity with the pacifist Tuatha way of belief more believable. Perrin was always a quiet young man. He was always bigger and stronger than the other kids, so he was always very deliberate about what he did so that he didn't accidentally hurt somebody. You didn't have to do that to make his interest in pacifism work better. And I really hope that's not the only reason they did that. Let's psychologically torment our characters for no good reason. They did spend some time in the books with the Tuathans. This is right on the books. There's some changes that have been made. There's a character that was introduced before then that we may still see. I'm not really going to talk about it just in case we do, so I'm spoiling anything. I don't know if we're going to see him or not. But they do spend time, and they do some dancing with the Tuatha and spend some time with them. I like how they're doing Aram. Aram really just doesn't seem to take anything seriously. He doesn't take his people seriously. He clearly doesn't believe any excuse that Egwene or Perrin give him for being out in the middle of the Caroline grass with nothing to their names. He's just got this, yeah, I don't believe in anything kind of vibe about him, which I like. We do get the feeling that Egwene is still kind of pining for Rand, which she still is at this point. Really wasn't a lot in there. There's a nice scene with Perrin and, oh crap, what is the woman's name? Aram's grandmother, where they talk more about the whole idea of the wheel and the souls that are being reborn. That was really beautiful and really well done. The idea that she's trying to make the world better so that when her daughter is reborn, she's reborn into a better world. It really helps sell the idea that these people think of their own accomplishments differently than we do, because of the fact that they think of life as cyclical. I like that. I think that was well done. Is there anything else from the Tuatha that I wanted to talk about? No, there wasn't really anything else there that I wanted to talk about. When we go check in with Rand and Matt and Tom, we clearly get the idea that there's something wrong with Matt. And Tom very clearly thinks that Matt is a channeler. And he tells a story about what happened to his nephew, which is all straight from the book, about how the Reds came along and channeled him without a thought, and how he basically gave up on life after that. And that's why he's helping these boys, is because he feels that he failed his nephew. And he wants to keep them away from the Aes Sedai so they can't do to him what they did to his nephew. He thinks that Matt's illness has to do with the fact that he's channeling. And I'm about to be interrupted. 1 second. Okay. So we check him, and at one point, Rand tries to get Matt to talk to him to find out what's going on with him, but when Matt throws up, he's very clearly throwing up what looks like coffee grounds, which looks like how the evil in Shadar Logoth was portrayed. And we see that he's still carrying the dagger in the scene where the Fade shows up, that he picked up in Shadar Logoth. So if you haven't read the books, I'll let you draw your own conclusions there. The boys being kind of mistrusted and trading their labor for shelter and or food is right from the books, even if these particular people aren't necessarily from the books, and this particular scene isn't exactly how it happened in the book. The idea is still the same. They're running across random people who don't really trust them, but they're able to barter themselves into some shelter and some food. The little girl was really cute. The fact that she had a doll that she wanted to give Matt named Brigitte. Keep that name in the back of your head, because Brigitte is a name that's going to come back. She's a legendary heroine from ages past. Who's known for her blonde braid and her silver bow. They narrowly escape a Fade, a Midral, who kills off the family, and that's when the shot when they come in and the first thing that we focus on with the camera on the bodies reminded me a little bit of I kind of giggled a bit at that. I'm a Dungeons and Dragons player, and one of the things that we run across is pre-made modules where the module wants to set a scene and then tell you what scary things in the room. So you get what's called box text, where they had this blurb of text that the dungeon master will then read out to you that tells you all about what the room looks like. So, like, you'll find out details like the tapestries have all of this going on, and then you look into the middle of the room and there's a creature there that wants to kill you, which is not part of the box text, but the GM then tells you afterwards. Because, of course, you're going to spend time. It's kind of a running joke for those of us who've been playing D&D for a while, that, yeah, I'm, of course, going to admire the tapestries for the lovely colors that are in them before I notice the murderous creature that's in the room. And that's kind of the thing that I laughed about a bit, because the first thing they notice isn't their friend in the middle of the room. They notice the people on the floor. They notice the set dressing. They don't notice that their friend is standing with, like, evil on his face and a dagger out. I thought it was interesting framing. Whether that was the intent, I don't know. I think it was supposed to invoke the horror of, oh my god, these people are dead. But that's not how it came across to me. Yeah, but there's a Fade there who's clearly killed off the people, but they didn't come after the boys first, and we're not quite sure why that is. But Tom puts himself between the boys and tries to fight off the Fade, which, not usually a good idea. Midral are very, very dangerous. And I'm sad because in the books we've had so much more of Tom before now because he's actually introduced in Emmons Field, not in the little mining town. So we've had like 2 episodes of Tom versus like the whole first part. So we're not going to see Tom. If we're not going to see Tom for a while now, I'm kind of sad because he's a fun character. We lost Tom already. That's sad. What? Oh, is it 9? Oh, that must be my husband's phone. I can hear that all the way down here. Christ. Okay. He has an alarm set up for 7, so he reminds the kids to get their stuff ready for school for tomorrow because it's Sunday. I think the only thing I have left to talk about really is the last bit of the episode. We get to have some quiet moments with Nynaeve and Lan where they kind of bond over having lost their home. We don't know why Lan's people have lost their home. I'm sure that will come up later. But he reveals that he's Malkiri and they've lost their home. And he prays that someday they will see it again. And Nynaeve shares a prayer in the old tongue that she doesn't understand that her parents gave to her before the last time she saw them, before they died. And she doesn't understand it, but he does, which lets us know that he has more education than maybe we might have thought otherwise. And I wrote it down here because this was not part of the books. We shall go into the land so our children can always hold us and will never be alone, is what the prayer means. And it's the last thing that was said about from the king and queen of Malkir, not Malkir, but Manetheren before Manetheren fell, which is the land that is now the Two Rivers. Used to be the great kingdom of Manetheren. Talking is thirsty work. And then we find out that Nynaeve's estimation of Lan has increased. She thought he was just a lapdog with 2 legs, as she puts it. And Lan admits that Nynaeve is exactly who she thought he was, but we don't get to find out what it is because they get interrupted by the fight, while Logain's armies try to come in and free him. One thing that struck me as a D&D player, and probably anyone who has any idea of tactics, is the fact that the Aes Sedai don't stay back. The Aes Sedai are not wearing any kind of armor. They're not carrying any weapons. All they have is their power. But they are standing up with their fighting men. They may have the fighting men between them and the bad guys, but they are still really close. And if you play Dungeons and Dragons and are used to trying to map out combat scenes, or even if you just understand how this kind of thing works, if you have a squishy class, if you have a character who is not armored, you don't normally let them stay close to the front lines. That's where the dangerous weapons are. You have them stand back so that they're clear of getting accidentally hit with weapons. But you can't do that with Aes Sedai because of the 3 O's. The 3 O's make it so that Aes Sedai cannot use the power as a weapon except in the last extreme defense of themselves, their warder, or another sister. So they have to be up where the fighting is. They have to feel threatened by that fighting in order to be able to use the power as a weapon. Which we already knew because we talked about the 3 O's when Moraine was talking to Egwene about learning to channel. But it's illustrated here, and I thought it was probably good to bring up because it struck me when I saw them there. My instinct is, you are squishy, get the hell away from the fight. But no, with Aes Sedai they can't. They have to feel threatened, or they literally cannot channel the power in their own defense. That was interesting, so I brought it up. We do see Kerene and Leandrin have a bit of a spat over not being able to continue holding Logain all the way to the White Tower, and Kerene is having absolutely none of Leandrin's shenanigans. She's like, no, I'm sorry, we're not going against the law, and you should know better because you're a red and you're supposed to be the ones telling me about how the law works with regards to men who can channel. This is not okay that you're doing this to me. She's having absolutely none of it. So, and then he manages to get free. Because they're distracted and he's very powerful. Knocks both of them out, manages to free himself. He melts the bars of his prison in a really cool shot. It's very visually pleasing. I do enjoy it. And Moraine comes in to talk to him. She wants to know why he thinks he's the Dragon Reborn, and she's on the fence as to whether or not he should be. And then she notices her sisters are waking. And she goes back to the party line, "You're not the Dragon Reborn. What you're hearing is the madness." And then all three of them go to shield him. And he tries to fight back. And throwing probably spears of air, sharp objects towards them. Kerene, out of reflex, protects the other two, but ends up getting hit herself and dying, which sets off her warder because he senses the minute she dies. Throughout the whole fight, there's several points where Nynaeve might be in danger. Lan spends a lot of time making sure that she's okay. A red sister goes down briefly, but Alana saves her. We see the King of Ghealdan basically bleeding out on the battlefield. And then the warder, who's basically losing his mind because his Aes Sedai died, goes to attack the shielded Logain and accidentally breaks the shield, which breaks his axes and nearly kills everybody in the room. And Nynaeve comes in, sees Lan bleeding out from a very fatal gash in the throat, and freaks out and channels enough to heal everyone in the room, except for Kerene, who's already dead. Aes Sedai can heal pretty much up to the brink of death, but they can't do anything for someone who's already gone. In this huge display, right after Moraine has said that the amount of power you can channel is but a trickle compared to what the Dragon Reborn will be able to channel. And we just saw this huge display of Nynaeve's power. And we're going to have to wait till next week to find out how much Nynaeve has control of her power in this version, because In the book, she didn't know she could channel. Since she knew, but she also in the books didn't know anything about Aes Sedai, and therefore didn't know to equate this whole listening to the wind thing that the wisdoms do with channeling. Now, I'm pretty sure she figured out what she did right there was channeling, but it's intimated in the books that she had been healing people with the power for a long time before Moraine came along. She didn't know she was. Every once in a while, something would happen and one of her cures would work way better than it had any right to. And she just thought it was her ability as a healer. Because sometimes you administer these things to people and they don't get better, and sometimes you administer it to them and they get better really quickly. Such is the nature of medicine, right? But in this version, she knows that her mentor went to the White Tower. So I don't know how much she understands about her own power. And yes, in the books, she is an extraordinary channeler. She is basically the strongest channeler that they have in the books. She's stronger than any other Aes Sedai. She doesn't have any control over what she can do, but she has raw power. So we'll see how they treat this in the series. It may be very different. And like I said, adaptations have an entirely different purpose than the original book. They have a lot of constraints that the books don't. So they may treat it very differently. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do like some of the things that I've seen. Some things that I've seen that are changes, I'm not going to comment on because to do so would be spoilers. But I do like how they're handling this so far. If anyone would like to chat with me who has read the books and would like to chat about those changes, I'm willing to do so. But the video itself I want to remain as spoiler-free as I can for those who've not read the books. So if you have not read the books and don't want spoilers, be careful of the comments. Those who want to discuss things that could be spoilers, if you could tag them, I would appreciate it. I'm sure so would your other viewers. But that's all I have on episode 4. It ends off with Nynaeve showing off exactly how awesome and powerful she is, and lets us ruminate on that for a week. So thank you again for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, go ahead and click that like button. If you want to see me next week, or this coming week, I suppose, for this Friday's, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the bell so you'll know when I've next uploaded. I'm usually busy Fridays, so it probably won't be Friday when I upload this. I have to wait for my husband to get home, because if I watch it without him, we're going to have World War III. And then we play D&D, and I'll probably end up recording it over the weekend. So be sure to ring that bell so that you know exactly when I'm uploading so that you don't miss out. And I will see you in the next one. Keep it spooky, guys. Bye.